Greetings, my name is Jeremy Sutton from PrecisionPrinciple.com, and in this video we're going to consider the role of awareness in our ongoing development. Broadly speaking, our awareness goes through specific stages whenever we learn or gain mastery in any skill. For example, at one point in our lives, there's a time where we don't know anything about a topic, and we don't even know that that topic exists. So this can be known as we're unconsciously unaware. That means we don't even know what we don't know. The second stage of awareness is where we become consciously aware of the things that we don't know. That's where we sort of discover the topic in the first place, yet we still don't really understand anything about it. In the next stage, which is probably the largest and longest stage by time-wise, we become consciously aware. In other words, this is where we start to practice this field, or we start to gain more knowledge in this field or this area, this skill, whatever it may be. And then in the fourth stage, we become unconsciously aware. Now, what this means is where we've gathered so much skill and proficiency in this area that now we sort of internalized how it works. So at first, we don't even know something exists. And then at some point, we notice it and it enters into our sort of mental map of how the universe is. Then, if we choose to do so, we can consciously develop skills or knowledge in this area, and then ultimately, as we start to internalize this knowledge and it becomes more intuitive to us, we gain intuition, or we can unconsciously perform at a proficient level, or just have an idea of how this area works. So, in different traditions, they have different ways of describing this. For example, in the yogic tradition, we go from instinct to intellect to intuition. And another way of saying that is, in the field of development, we go from sort of acting the way that biology has created us, that evolution has kind of spit us out. And we all have natural tendencies. And then sort of our mind switches on in the rational sense, in that sense that distinguishes humans from all the rest of the animals, in the fact that we can think into the future, we can think analytically, and we're not just completely consumed by our instinctual drives. And then with our intellect, we can sort of condition ourselves in the way that we want to be. And ultimately, when we just start doing this naturally, we start to move to this stage of intuition. And we can move through this process from going completely unaware to sort of just like going with the flow with like the natural vibes to thinking about it and working on it, and then sort of internalizing and conditioning ourselves how we really want to be. We can go through this process in almost any area of our lives. So, for example, you might think of mathematics on a very basic level. I mean, we didn't grow up knowing how to count inherently, right? Or at least there's at some point where numbers get large enough that there's clearly no instinctual knowledge of like what's the difference between like 100,000 and like 10 million. These are just numbers that are so far outside of our realm of intuition that we don't have a natural understanding of these numbers. But eventually, we can gain sort of an intuition of how this works. And then we can sort of build on these skills. We become aware that math is a thing. We can start to learn how to count. We can realize how counting is related to addition and subtraction. And then how when you take numbers and you multiply them, this is also related, this is the next step of addition. And when you multiply them, you can also divide them. And then we get to things like exponents and even more abstract levels of mathematics like algebra, geometry, up to calculus, and all sorts of things that are over most of our heads. But the point is that we become aware of the topic, then we can practice the topic so that we can internalize some of this, and it takes some work. And if we work enough, we can develop intuition in this topic. Same thing can go for cooking. The same thing could go for languages. The same thing can go for sports of any kind. And similarly, the same thing can go in this process of psychological development. So thank you for joining me. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure to click subscribe down below so you can get the next update of the series. And if you enjoy this type of content, self-improvement, and ways to develop ourselves on a day-to-day basis, then head over to precisionprinciple.com, and there you can get updates on ways to transform our lives every single day. So thank you for joining me. Keep learning, keep growing, and make every day count.